Hey everybody, I'm not sure what happened a while ago. I tried to record this earlier and it started acting funny. So let me try this one more time. This particular lecture isn't going to take a really long time. It's the introduction to medical term. We're gonna spend a few weeks studying medical terminology, and the reason why we spend a little longer on this than some of the other classes is simply because this particular unit is one of the most important units that we have because medical terminology is the common language used across all genres of healthcare. It doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, a nurse, a medical assistant, a transcriptionist, a you do billing and coding, you're a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, a medical assistant, a CNA. It doesn't matter. You have to know the common language used in all healthcare, and medical terminology is our common language. The reason why we spend quite a bit of time on medical terminology is that it truly is learning another language. You're going to have to learn all of the parts of the word so that you can break it down and know what it means. It will help you really be able to understand not only what your doctor's talking about, but it'll help make classes like anatomy and physiology. And when you go into college, taking certain science classes and taking pathophysiology and any kind of medical class, it will make it much easier for you to understand if you learn them now. In turn, I will tell you, just like if you're taking Spanish or any other class, we will use these terms from here on out the rest of the year. And so I'll expect you to understand them. I'll expect you to learn them and be able to utilize them. So you're going to need to make flashcards as we go. I'm going to upload a couple of pages of medical terms. There'll either be prefixes, suffixes, or root words. Some of them may even be some abbreviations that we use in healthcare, but we will start utilizing those, and you'll need to make flashcards. Now, with this first set for today, since this lecture won't be really long, you may make a Quizlet, but you will get a grade for your flashcards. You'll be expected to make so many flashcards every day throughout this unit, and you need to start using them to learn. Don't just make them and set them in your binder or set them in your room somewhere or leave them in your locker. Look over them every day and start learning them, because we will use these for the rest of the year. On your vocabulary test, we'll start using more. You'll start seeing more and more medical terms as opposed to just more general basic words and definitions. You'll see more and more medical terms. And as we get to anatomy, the anatomy part of this class, where we learn about the different body systems, it will help you. It'll make the test, it'll make the unit so much easier if you learn these terms to begin with. So, what are the objectives for this unit? That you'll develop an understanding of the basic principles behind medical terminology and their application. So, not just know what the prefixes, suffixes, and word roots are, but know how to combine them together to make words, or know how to break them apart to understand what the word means. That way you can even if you're not sure what a word means, if you break it apart, you can kind of tell. And understand how to build terms using word roots and combining them with prefixes and suffixes so that you can have a greater understanding. Now, once again, I will tell you, this is a new language, and so the parts of it are very similar to English words, Spanish words, anything you're learning in a language. You'll have a prefix, a suffix, and word roots and combining forms. The combining form is generally a vowel that goes with a word root, either before or after, to help you make that word cohesive. So, like electrocardiogram, electra means electricity. The O combines it to cardi means heart. O combines it to gram, electrocardiogram. A gram is an image. So you take those words and you'll be able to break them apart and use that. So that word had a prefix, a suffix, and a word root all together. Some of these words you're going to be familiar with just based on normal life experiences. Some of them you're really not. And so it's going to be important for you to learn those prefixes, suffixes, and word roots so that you can break them apart and learn what they mean. When it comes to testing, the test for this unit is not just a basic question and four multiple choice answers. You have to know how to spell these words. So as we go into further in, you will actually need to learn how to spell the medical terms, because you'll in this test on this test for this unit, you'll have a scenario like a little reading passage, and it'll have the medical terms highlighted, or it may have a sentence that's in bold and underlined, or it'll have words that are bold and underlined. If it's a word that's bold and underlined on the multiple choice part, you're going to have to tell me what that word means. If it's a sentence or a part of a sentence, you're going to have to go down and you're going to have to tell me not only what that means, like if I said a patient went in, was admitted to entered the emergency with blueness around their mouth and nose. That's called cyanosis. Not only will you have to know that it's cyanosis, but because cyano means blue. So not only will you have to know that it means what cyanosis means, you're going to have to know how to spell it correctly, because I'll give you 3 or 4 different spellings and you'll have to know the correct way to spell it. So this test is a little more difficult, and you're really going to have to make those flashcards and learn. Also, we'll use them throughout the year. The most common. This is one of the hardest units in healthcare. It's one of the ones that students and medical students, not just in high school but all through, that we kind of complain about the most, because we're having to learn a new language. It is its own complete language. It's used, like I said, by medical professionals in every area of healthcare. And by learning the word roots, the combining forms, prefixes, and suffixes, it helps us be able to navigate through that language and be able to kind of break words down. If we don't even necessarily know what it means, we can kind of figure out the basis of what it means. Rules for medical terms: the prefix always goes at the left or in the front of the word. If it's a prefix, it's going to have a hyphen or a dash after it. So if I were to say hypo, hypo would have a hyphen after it. Hypo means low, below, insufficient. So it would have a hyphen after it. If it's a word root, then it's or its combining form, then it might be volum, vol, VOLUM, volm. So that means volume. Hypovolemia, that would be a whole word. Hypo means low. Volume. Volm would mean volume. Emia, EMIA, would be pertaining to the blood. So that vom would be the root word, and the suffix would be emia, which means pertaining to the blood. So you'll be able to break words down related to that. So the prefix, like I said, will have that hyphen. The word root, the word root, and its combining form, it won't have a hyphen before or after. It may have a slash with an O or an E or whatever its combining vowel is, if it needs one. And then the suffix will have a dash or a hyphen before it. That's a good way to tell. And the suffix always goes on the end, and the prefix goes on the middle. Now, you don't. The word root always pertains to something related to the anatomy, either the part of the body, the system, or maybe even the disease process. So the word root is going to be basically that. It's going to be the basic meaning of the word, and the prefix and suffix are going to add to it to make it a more complete word. When we break a medical term apart, it's how we determine the definition. You start with the suffix. Lots of times, if you can look at the suffix and determine its meaning, then look at the prefix. Then the middle of the word, you kind of have to know what that means. But like another example would be Let me think of one not too difficult. Hyponatremia. So hypo means low. Emia, once again, is the suffix means emia, which means pertaining to the blood. Hypo, we know, means low. And so Na, which is the symbol for sodium. So hyponatremia means low sodium in the blood. So that's the way we kind of take those words apart and to determine what it means. And then when we put it all together, we have the word, but we can also determine what it means. So the prefix, if we know the prefix and the suffix, lots of times it can help us determine that word root if we're not sure. Once again, spelling. Spelling is extremely important. You're going to have to learn how to spell these words. Misspelling terms can be the difference in diagnosis and treatment. There's colectomy, can mean two different things depending on how it's spelled. Spelled Cholectomy. Colectomy means removing of the gallbladder. But Colectomy, that colectomy means removing something from the colon. So we have to be very careful about our spelling and understanding what is being said, because it can determine treatment, it can determine surgical procedures, it can determine diagnosis, and it could even cause someone to get the wrong treatment and die. So we have to be very careful and understand not only how to spell, but what they mean. Also know that there are multiple different prefixes, suffixes, and root words that can mean the same thing. That's another reason we have to know what the spelling is of all of those. Some are pronounced, like I said, some are pronounced the same and have similar or have very similar spellings, but they mean something very different. So we have to know the application of the medical term in each instance that they're being used so that we spell them correctly in the patient's medical record. It's just really spelling. I can't even tell you how important spelling is. This is a unit where if you spell it wrong, it's wrong. And as we move forward, when we do different things, if you spell it wrong, it's wrong. Now, I know that Google has a medical dictionary in it. Google Docs does. Google Forms does not. So we have to be real careful, and you have to be sure you know how to spell words. Our expectation is usually prefixes are not altered when they're added to a combining form or root word. However, there are some exceptions to the rules, and we need to know those. The way to remember is to evaluate to evaluate the combining form and how it's being used and what vowel is being used with that combining form. Is it an O? Is it an E? Is there a combining form at all? And then select the most appropriate prefix that's applicable in if that ends in a consonant. So we have to be careful about not doing our best not to have two vowels together at the beginning at the end of a prefix and a root word. Same way at the end of a root word and a suffix. We need to remember that we generally don't have two vowels together. So these are some resources that y'all will get some access to, but also the more important is just understanding, and where we will tomorrow we'll talk some more about, and as you see how those prefixes are together, and I'm going to flip over and start to show you some of those. So these are some of the prefixes, suffixes, and root words. These are some of the commonly used prefixes. A or an, it means without. So anuria means without urine. See, we wouldn't put a urea because that would be two vowels together. So we would put an, so we have that that consonant before the u for urea. That means without urine. So anuria means without urine. Aurea would violate that understanding that the two vowels don't go together. So it means without. Anti, pre, or pro usually means before. So as you can see, you're going to have some prefix. You're going to have this to go ahead and start helping you. I'm going to upload this along with two documents that will help you start down that road making either your Quizlet or your flashcards. I would prefer you make handwritten flashcards because when you write them, you learn them. If you need to start today to finish your time with a Quizlet, that's okay. That's okay. But go ahead and get started on these first two pages that are uploaded as a PDF document. There'll be vocabulary list 1 and 2, and it starts with prefixes and suffixes and some root words. All right, if you guys have questions, let me know, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks, everybody.